Right now, you are probably alone in a room. Maybe a door is closed, maybe headphones are in, and it feels completely normal, so normal, that you probably haven't thought about it once today. But for almost all of human history, being alone was not normal. It was not peaceful. It was not a choice. It was terrifying. The idea that a person deserves a space no one else can enter, a thought no one else can hear, a life that exists outside the group's awareness, that idea is shockingly new. And the story of how humans discovered privacy might say more about who we are than almost anything else. To understand what privacy actually is, you first have to understand what life looked like without it. For hundreds of thousands of years, humans lived in small bands. 20 people. 50, at most. You were born into a group, and you died in it. Every meal was shared. Every conflict was witnessed. Every birth, every death, every fight between two people happened in front of everyone else. There was no such thing as a private thought that stayed private for long. Gossip traveled at the speed of fire. If you did something strange, embarrassing, or dangerous, everyone knew by nightfall. And this wasn't a flaw in early human society. It was the entire point. In a world where survival depended on cooperation, total visibility was a feature. The group needed to know who was contributing, who was stealing, who was sick, who was reliable, and who was going to get everyone killed. Privacy, in that world, would have looked less like freedom and more like suspicious behavior. Imagine living in that world. You wake up surrounded by other bodies. You eat in a circle. You hunt in groups. You sleep in a shared shelter where you can hear everyone breathing. Your entire existence is legible to the people around you. And for most of human history, this was simply life. Not good, not bad, just the only version that existed. Then, around 10,000 years ago, something shifted. Humans began farming, and farming changed everything in ways that took thousands of years to fully understand. When people stopped moving and started staying in one place, something new appeared: walls. At first, walls were purely practical. Keep the wind out, keep predators away, keep grain dry. But walls do something else that nobody planned for. Walls create insides and outsides. They create the concept of a threshold, a line between what belongs to you and what belongs to everyone else. For the first time in human history, a family could exist inside a structure that other people could not enter without permission. This was not privacy yet, not in the way we understand it. But it was the first hint that separateness was possible. As settlements grew into villages and villages into cities, the architecture of privacy slowly evolved. Wealthy households in ancient Rome built rooms called cubicula, small, enclosed sleeping chambers that separated the important people from the servants, the public from the personal. The word privacy itself comes from the Latin privatus, meaning set apart from the state. To the Romans, privacy was not about inner life or personal freedom, it was about rank. Only powerful people got to be private. Everyone else stayed visible. For centuries, this remained true. In medieval Europe, even kings slept in rooms crowded with attendants. Nobles dressed in front of servants without a second thought. The idea that a body, your own body, deserved to exist outside of other people's observation was simply not a widespread concept. Beds were shared between strangers at inns. Children and parents slept together out of necessity. The notion of a door you could close and a space that was genuinely yours was a luxury so extreme that most people would never experience it in their entire lives. Then the printing press arrived, and something strange happened to the human mind. Before mass literacy, most knowledge was shared out loud. Stories were told in groups, religious texts were read to congregations, even official announcements were performed publicly in squares. Knowledge was fundamentally communal. But once ordinary people could read silently, alone, something new became possible. A private thought could be sustained. A private world could be built inside a person's own head, without anyone else having access to it. Silent reading created the interior self in a way that had never existed before. Thinkers began writing about the inner life as though it were a real place, a territory worth protecting. The self became somewhere you could go. By the 17th and 18th centuries, this idea was accelerating. Wealthy Europeans began designing homes with rooms that had specific, individual purposes. A room for eating, a room for sleeping, a room for reading alone. Corridors appeared, architectural inventions that meant servants could move through a house without passing through private rooms. Before corridors existed, every room connected to every other room. To get anywhere, you walked through wherever someone else was. The corridor made it possible to arrive somewhere without being seen. Privacy was being literally built into stone and wood. And then the modern era collapsed the whole thing. The 20th century brought surveillance that ancient rulers could only dream about. Cameras appeared on streets, in stores, on phones. Governments began collecting information at scales that made Roman record-keeping look prehistoric. And then, in the space of about 20 years, nearly everyone on Earth placed a tracking device in their own pocket and began voluntarily publishing the details of their daily life to strangers. The thing humans had spent 10,000 years slowly constructing, a wall between the self and the watching world, suddenly became something people dismantled themselves, one post at a time. And here is the strange part. It felt good. It still does. Because deep underneath the modern concept of privacy, those ancient instincts never disappeared. The part of your brain that evolved in a small band of 50 people still responds to visibility. Being seen still feels like belonging. Being witnessed still feels like safety. Every time you post something and someone responds, a very old part of your nervous system registers something that feels uncomfortably like, the group knows I exist, I am not alone, I will survive the night. Privacy turned out to be something humans built because civilization required it, not because biology demanded it. We needed ways to protect property, manage power, sustain inner lives complex enough to run societies, but the hunger to be known, to be visible, to exist inside someone else's awareness, that never went away. It just got quieter. And every generation has had to renegotiate the line between the self that belongs to others and the self that belongs only to you. That negotiation is still happening. Right now, in real time, societies are arguing about who gets to see what a government can access, what a company can store, what a stranger can find. The answers keep changing because the question itself is only a few thousand years old. In the long history of our species, the idea that your inner life belongs to you, that your location, your thoughts, your body, your choices exist in a space others cannot enter without permission, is so recent it barely registers on the timeline. For most of human history, someone always knew where you were. Someone always knew what you ate, who you spoke to, what you did when you were supposed to be sleeping. The campfire lit up everyone equally. The walls of the village had no corridors. The self had nowhere private to go. Tonight, you can close a door. You can sit in silence and think something no one will ever know. You can exist completely outside of other people's awareness for as long as you want. That feeling, ordinary, invisible, taken completely for granted, is one of the strangest inventions in human history. And most people will go their entire lives without realizing it was invented at all.